How's it going, YouTube? Part 3 of my Chrono card review here. I hope you guys have been enjoying them. They've been a lot of fun. We're nearing the end of the card reveals here, so might be only 1 or 2 more after this. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Alright, welcome to our Chrono Genesis card review part 3. To start off, we have Darksaber Melissa, a Swordcraft commander, 6-plate and 6/4. It has Ward, Fanfare gain -X. X equals the number of other allied followers in play. Gain +Y health. Y equals the number of enemy followers in play. Cannot be targeted by enemy spells and effects. This card is interesting. Just looking at it very quickly, it doesn't seem that good to me. It seems like another, good on paper sword legendary that might not end up seeing play. Let's look at the effect more closely, right? So 6/4 for 6 are not bad stats, and it has Ward. The number of dudes you have, this guy loses attack. So let's say you have 2 guys in play, you place him, becomes a 4/4, which becomes significantly weaker. But the more enemy minions your opponent has, the more health it gets. So let's say your opponent has 3 minions, you play this, becomes a 6/7, and that's pretty good. It has Ward, so it's meant to be defensive. It can't be targeted by enemy spells and effects, which is also good, because it's harder to remove. It still can die to destruction effects, so it still dies to Bane, it still dies to Bahamut and things like that. They just can't target it with something like Dance to Death, which is now rotating out anyway. So how relevant is the can't be targeted by enemy spells and effects? I mean, it's better than if it didn't have it, so I guess that's something. Is it good enough to make the card see actual play? You obviously want to place in a more defensive sword deck, which sometimes those sword decks have done okay. Right now they are not, and we still don't really know what direction they want to take sword in after the rotation. If sword decks become slower and more mid-rangey and defensive, then they have an option to play this as a defensive card. I mean, it's kind of like Aurelia. Aurelia once upon a time saw play. Maybe this will see play. Again, it does die to random Bane and stuff. I don't know, man. I don't know how to properly judge this card. I think on paper it looks good. Will it be good in reality? It's hard to say. I'm excited to see what the other sword legendary is, though. I hope it's something more exciting. Alright, next we got Basilisk Rider, a Dragoncraft bronze, 4-plate with 2/2. I gotta say, I like the art. That snake looks pretty cool. I'm digging it. So, like we were talking about how a bunch of cards just get Bane all of a sudden. Here's another card where they just give Bane to. I don't know, man. I feel like they just give Bane out for free, and I don't like that. Anyway, this guy's 4-plate with 2/2, which is pretty bad stat-wise. Bane is powerful. For 2/2, it dies to removal easy. It also has last word summon a Basilisk, and a Basilisk is a 3-plate point 1/1 Bane. This is a token card, so you can't just put it in your deck. So you get, for power flavors, you get a minion with Bane that will hopefully trade up against anything. And once they kill this, you get another minion with Bane that can also has the possibility to trade up. So potential for this card is high, although it definitely seems like more of a take-2 value card. In Constructed, you get a 2/2 could get removed easy, the 1/1 could be removed easy, or they could just trade their little guy into it. For 4-plate, one seems kind of rough. Again, doesn't seem like a bad card. Depends on how good Bane becomes. Bane is not bad, right? At worst, it's decent. Could be really good if the sword lane area becomes rampant or some shit. So I don't know. Just a bunch of Bane, right? Just a bunch more Bane. Cygames loves Bane. Okay, next we have Holy Angel Altaia, a neutral silver, 5-plate 4/4. So below average stats, but not by much. Still pretty playable. Fanfare change an enemy follower into a neutral follower. And then Clash, deal 4 damage to enemy follower if it is a neutral follower. Turning your opponent's dudes neutral may have some counter synergy. For the most part, that will probably never ever be relevant. It is relevant in this card's Clash effect, which lets it do 4 damage to an enemy follower if it's neutral. So let's say your opponent has a 4/4. You put them into neutral. If you Evo this card over them, you can kill it without taking damage essentially. If your opponent plays more neutral minions, then you can maybe get more value out of this card's Clash. Realistically, you're only going to get value out of it once. And if you only get value out of this card's effect once, is it that good? I mean, it's not bad. Because with an Evo, you can sort of guarantee to get clash value. So it could be like a 5-player 1/4/4, Evo 6/6, Evo quote-unquote deal 4 damage, which is not bad. It doesn't seem awful. But again, a card where like, what kind of construct deck wants to play this? Your deck probably has better things it wants to do to whatever goal you're trying to do. Like, there's probably cards that can help you achieve that. As opposed to like, why are you playing this card? Like, why would your deck want to play this? And I don't think I can answer that question right now. So although not bad, probably will not see constructed play. More of a take-2 card if anything. Although really not a bad card all around. You gotta imagine that the decks have better things to do that can benefit with whatever the deck is trying to do though. Alright, next we have Frostfire Dragon. Shoutouts to Prepcorn who got to reveal this card. A Dragoncraft, Bronze, 8-play 1/4/6. Fanfare deal 3 damage to a random follower. And then a random follower can attack next turn. I don't like this card one bit. Okay, I like the art. I like the art a lot. I wish this was a cooler card. Like, if they want to give Dragon more big dragons than are playable and do cool stuff, then I'm down for that because I love dragons. And Dragon is still my most played class. This card is just not that good, right? Like, we're talking about this a lot, but in Shadowverse, a game that is where games are relatively quick, whatever like 7-drop, 8-drop, 9-drop, 10-drop you play, it has to like impact the board a lot, or be a win condition, or get you close to win the game, or something like that, right? Frostfire Dragon does fight the board, which is better than nothing. Its stats are mediocre, its effect is random, and the reality is that like you could just be playing better 8-drops. You could just be playing better 8-drops. So I guess, like a lot of cards we've seen today, technically speaking, not a terrible card, but probably more of a take-2 card. There's just way better stuff you can play constructed, right? And I wish Dragon got more exciting stuff. I like the art though. Art is cool. Okay, next we have Priestess Cattleya, a Havencraft, Silver, 6-play 1/4/6, which are not the best stats, but not bad stats. Last words, put a Summit Temple into your hand. On Evo, same thing. So what is the Summit Temple? Now, interesting about this card is that it gives you a Summit Temple, but Summit Temple is an actual card. This is not just a token, so you can play this card standalone in your deck. So we're kind of like review both of them together. So Summit Temple is a 1-play 1 amulet. Fanfare, if another Summit Temple is in play, draw a card and destroy this amulet. Whenever an allied Havencraft follower attacks, that follower deals damage equal to its defense until the end of your turn. So it's basically the Layla effect that Haven had. I believe Layla is rotating out, because I don't think it's basic, right? So they're giving that effect to the class. Interesting about this card is that if you have a second one, you can play it and it'll cycle itself. So your deck probably wants to play, like if you're playing a Summit Temple deck, you're playing 3 of these. But after you play one, it's not useless, you can at least cycle it. And that's nice. So how good is your Havencraft followers doing damage with the defense instead? I mean, Layla was pretty bad. And I don't know, man. If they want to print more synergy for this, then maybe. All around, I don't like this effect because since you take damage and your defense gets lower, it means that, like, let's say you have a 0/6, which with this becomes a 6/6. It gets hit by a 2/2, or you Evo or a 2/2. Now it's a 0/4, so now it only has 4 attack. So essentially this says that like whenever your minions get hit, they also lose attack as well, and that's pretty shitty. So for that reason alone, I don't really like this. This does synergize really well with the new Haven Legendary, because if you have Summit Temple, you play the new Legendary. It's a 3/7 with Storm if you have an amulet, so it becomes a 7/7 Storm. So in this deck, the new Haven Legendary becomes really, really good. Like a 7/7 Ward Storm is pretty good. Is that good enough to make Summit Temple deck be a thing? I'm going to guess no. If they want to push this archetype, then they need a lot more support for it. The Priestess is nice unless you get more Summit Temples, which if you already had Summit Temples, then it just gives you a card draw, which is, again, good. And it does have high defense, technically speaking, so you can get value of the effect. But all around, I just don't really see it, man. Like, we talk about this a lot. In Shadowverse, if you want your deck to be good and constructed, you need to be doing some really unfair stuff. And being able to deal damage equal to your defense, that's just not that unfair, man. The best you can do with this is get the Legendary, which is 7/7 Storm, and that is pretty good. Is that good enough to make this deck a thing? I just don't see it. We need to see if they make more support for this dude. Next we have Lancer of the Tempest, a Swordcraft Commander, 3 play point, 3/2 gold minion. I gotta say, I like the art a lot. Seems pretty cool. It has Rush, and then Enhance 7. Whenever this follower attacks, deal 2 damage to all enemy followers. I think this card is pretty good. The obvious comparison to this card is Blitz Lancer, which is a 3 play point, 3/2 Rush. And that card, while not being insanely good or broken or anything like that, is good enough to see play. Like, it's an option when you're building a sword deck. You need 3 drops. You can think about playing Blitz Lancer. Sometimes you're going to play in it. 3/2 Rush is decent. It can fight stuff like Uriah's. It can help you get back on the board. It can clean minions up in the late game. Not insane card, not bad by any means. So Blitz Lancer is already playable. And this card is strictly better Blitz Lancer because you get the same thing. I guess a commander instead of an officer. Maybe that's a plus. Maybe it's a minus. I don't know. But ignoring the commander officer thing, it has Enhanced 7. So when he attacks, deal 2 damage to only followers. So becomes like a 7 play point Salamander, Breath of Salamander, right? Where you do 5 damage to one thing and then 2 to everything else. Sword, historically, not great for their AoE. And their AoE that Sword gets is usually pretty clunky. Is this the card that is going to save Sword or give them the best AoE or some shit like that? Probably not, but I think it is good. I think Sword will have the option if they want to play a sort of deck where they value AoE, then they have this card as an option. I think it's good. I don't think it's broken. I don't think it's bad. I think it's good, and I think it's good. Like, again, you want cards that are good enough to see play, but not good enough to be auto-picked, and not bad enough that they'll never see play, right? Like, you want that nice middle ground, and I think this card is right in there. So I do expect this to see play somewhere. I think it's cool. Maybe they get Sword better AoE, then Sword could play those lower games. I don't know. I like this card, though. We have Cursed Scarecrow, a Bloodcraft Bronze. 2 play with 4/1. So you look at this card and you're like, oh shit, we're playing this in aggro, we're going face. But then the effect says you can't attack the enemy leader. Same thing on Evil. So, sort of interesting. Like, 4/1 is a stat line we've not seen for 2 play before. I don't believe. 1 health means it dies to 1 drops or in 1 damage pings. But 4 attack means it can trade up against potentially 3 drops and also maybe 4 drops. It evolves into a 6/3, which is good for clearing things. Again, this seems like one of a more like a take 2 card. Like if you're in take 2 and you gotta take this blood, you'll probably be okay with it. In Constructed, you're not playing this in aggro blood because it can never go phase. And if you're trying to play control blood or mutant blood or other things, there's probably better cards to do their job as a 2-drop. But this is an instant card. It's a card that we've not seen before. So it's interesting, and I don't know, it's not the worst. Okay, next we have Leafman. It's a Forestcraft, 2 play point 2/2. I hope that this is not like the funky art card. Usually Shadowverse, they have like some really cool art, like Owlcat, Hamsa, really cute cards. And I hope that this is not their plan for this expansion, because they can do better than this. I don't like the art. Anyway, the card itself, 2 play point 2/2, which is fine. Fanfare Enhance 5. Give all allied followers +1 attack. Those followers cannot be damaged by spells and effects. These effects last until the end of your opponent's turn. So this is sort of like Lisa, right? Lisa is rotating out because I believe she's darkness. So this is like a replacement for Lisa. Except instead of giving the effect right away, you need to enhance to get the value. If you're not enhancing, you're playing them in a 2/2, which you really don't want to, but it's not the worst stat-wise. It also gives your followers 1 attack. So if you're playing a board where you need to... Like, let's say you're playing the buff forest deck, right? Where you're getting a bunch of dudes, like a bunch of fairies, and you're buffing them, and you're trying to be aggressive with them. You can play Leafman, give them all 1 attack, which is good, right? 1 attack is nice. And then it gives them protection to spells so that your opponent can then just use their removal spell, like Breath of Salamander, and clear them. On paper, that seems fine, but I don't know, man. Will this be good enough for that deck? It's hard to say right now. Like, resistance to spells and effects is nice if you're going wide. Protection from AoE. 1 attack buff is nice. For 5 is pretty expensive though. But then again, it is enhanced, so it's not like you have to play as a 5-drop. Like, if you absolutely must, you can play as a 2-drop. So that's not bad. Again, cards don't seem bad. Will it be good enough in that deck? Maybe? I don't know. Seems like a decent take 2 card. don't think this card is bad, but I don't think it's like insane or anything like that either. Alright, next we got Puppet Room, a Portalcraft Amulet. 3 playpen bronze, countdown 3. Fanfare, put a puppet into your hand. At the end of your turn, put a puppet into your hand. So this is puppet support, right? We've seen the 2 different Portalcraft decks will be artifacts and puppets. And this is puppet support. It seems like the artifacts have gotten, dare I say, the better support, and they look better right now. So puppet needed some love, and this card is good for puppets. Like if you're playing a puppet deck, you want to get a bunch of puppets in your hand. So far the cards that give you puppets are like pretty weak stat-wise. Obviously this amulet doesn't have stats, so this is why the board is a tempo loss. But it gives you a grand total of 4 puppets. And the puppet deck wants puppets, so... Will the puppet deck be any good? I have no idea, man. But puppet deck would probably play this. Puppet deck probably would play this. I don't know. It's hard to tell if... It's hard to tell if the puppet deck would be good, though. Like, right now, it definitely seems like the artifacts are better. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out, though. I hope that they're both at least playable, right? Like, I hope that both archetypes are at least playable. Portalcraft's gonna be weird, man, because, like, we've not seen it before ever, so... How's it gonna fit in the grand scheme of things? It's gonna be exciting for sure. Okay, next we have Goblin Emperor, and another neutral card. A gold playpen 3, 2/2. So below average stats, but not by much. Has the stats of a 2-drop. Fanfare, randomly put one of the following cards into your hand. A Goblin Leader, or a Goblin Princess. Whenever an outlet follower that originally costs 1 play points or less comes into play, give it Rush. The Fanfare is kind of weird. For the most part, Shadowverse doesn't have a lot of RNG. This card is pretty big RNG. Like, the difference between getting a Goblin or getting a Goblin Leader or a Princess, I gotta say it's pretty big. Like, yes, if you get a Goblin, this guy makes it a little better. But you gotta imagine that you'd rather get a Princess or a Leader. What's interesting about this card is that I was reading people talk about it, and they were saying that maybe this card is good, not as Goblin Synergy, but maybe in like Forest, because it gives anybody that costs 1 or less Rush. So you could play this with fairies so they could like trade or something. Is that good enough? Like, is this card good enough by itself? It's weak tempo play. It gives you a card, but the card could be a 1/2, which is just bad. Could be a Goblin Princess, which is good. I don't like that kind of RNG. Like, the worst type of RNG is like the Hearthstone RNG where Barnes gives you a 1/1 or it gives you a 1/1 Sylvanas, and like the game is deciding on that, right? I don't know if this is that far. Like, this is not reaching that bad, but it, like, the difference in a Goblin and a Goblin Princess is pretty big, and I don't like that. So just for that, I already don't like this card. Maybe there's synergy with decks that play a bunch of 1-drops like Forest, and maybe they will play it if they really want the Rush. But there's other cards that give you Fairy Storm and stuff. You're playing this for the value of trying to get a Goblin Princess, but then you get a Goblin and you're sad. It's also below average stats. I don't like this card. I don't like this card. Next we have Weald Philosopher. A Forestcraft Bronze 4/1 3/3 below average stats. Fanfare, give an order follower +1 attack. Put 2 fairies into your hand. So if you give an order follower 1 attack, essentially like a 4/3, which is not bad stats. The 1 attack could trade or go face immediately, which is good. And you get 2 fairies in your hand, which is good, right? Like, Fairy Whisperer gives you 2 fairies in your hand, and it gives up stats. This guy gives 2 fairies in your hand, and it sort of gives a stat, but sort of doesn't. If your deck needs fairies, there's probably better options, but you could maybe consider this guy. I don't think this is that bad. I just don't think this is that good either, right? Like, Brambles is probably a better card to give you fairies. Fairy Whisperer probably still better, just because you can play around 2 and it's easier to like combo it or like sneak it into your curve. This does let your fairies trade up or do more phase damage, and that's not bad. The 1 attack is permanent. It lasts forever, which is better than it like until the end of turn or something. So that's also nice. I don't think this card is that bad. Seems like a solid take 2 card. Would this be good enough for Constructed? Next we have Confront Adversity, a Swordcraft gold spell. 4 play points, summon a Shield Guardian and a Knight. I believe a Shield Guardian is a 1/1 ward, And a knight is just a 1/1. Deal 1 damage to enemy followers. They seem to be printing a lot of effects that do 1 damage. I've seen the deal 1 damage at least a couple times, right? I wonder if side games expects 1 damage to be really relevant in the meta. And maybe they know better than us. I mean, obviously they do. If 1 damage is relevant, then cards like these are good. The cards that do 1 damage, if the 1 damage isn't so relevant, then it becomes not as good, right? Again, usually deal 1 damage to enemy followers is worth around 3 play points. So here, for 1 extra play point, you get a Shield Guardian 1/1. Which is sort of nice. It's on the same card, which is also nice. But you play a 4 play card to 1 damage to the board and get a 1/1 and a 1/1 ward. That seems on the weaker side of things. This is good anti-aggro card though. Like, aggro plays a lot of dudes that have 1 health because they're like storming or like doing stuff like that. And the ward is just nice against aggro. If aggro becomes like the meta, then maybe stuff like this will be good. Okay, next we have Savage Wolf, a Bloodcraft Bronze, 3 play point 2/2 Storm. This is the No Ice Trooper reprint. But now Blood gets it. No Ice Trooper was good in aggro decks. Saw play, sees play. I mean, they lose Blood Wolf. So instead they get this guy. Costs 1 more play point, doesn't do self damage. Still storms the face for 2. The art is cool. A card like this is just boring to me. It's obviously not a bad card though. Will aggro blood still be a thing? I don't know. If they are, then they will probably play this. Next we have Chain Lightning, a 5 play point bronze spell. Deal 3 damage to an enemy. Put a Chain Lightning into your hand if you have 3 or less other cards in your hand. So 5 play point deal 3 damage is pretty awful. Usually for 2 play points you deal 3 damage. The payoff is that if you have 3 or less cards, you get this back. But all you're getting bad, like, Chain Lightning is a bad card, right? Like, 5 play point deal 3 damage is bad. It can't even go face. So that's bad. The payoff for playing this card is that if you have less cards, you get another Chain Lightning in your hand. So it's like you're playing a bad card on the payoff that sometimes it maybe may give you another bad card. So I don't like it. I don't like it. Like, Rune's got a lot of spells, man. They have to have way better spells to play than this. Okay, next we have the Unidentified Subject, Portalcraft Alien. I like the art. Like, the Portalcraft cards are like mechanical dudes. This is like some alien shit. So I like the art. 5 play 3/6. Whenever a card is put into your deck, gain +1 attack. So you play this on 5. This is like a pile of stats. How many cards do you need to put in the deck for this card to be like really good? Probably 2, right? Like, if you could play a vanilla 5 play 5/6, that would be above stats. This has condition that you need to fulfill. So it's not like you're playing this on 5. You can play this with a 0 cost spell that puts 3 cards into your deck and get a 5 play 6/6. That's not bad. But you need to do this specifically with that 1 0 cost card. Otherwise, it's like not that good. And even if you can do that, is that good enough for you to run in your deck? Like, does Portalcraft want a big pile of stats on the board? Or do they want to keep doing whatever the game plan is? I don't know, man. I don't see it. I like the art though. This is really good with that 0 cost card. Like, if you could high roll people with that and get a 5 play 6/6. Which isn't even like, yes, that's good. It's not even that unfair for you to play this into your deck. What about when you don't high roll and you play this as a 5 play 3/6? Still not horrible stats, but not great. Okay, next we have Fervent Machine Soldier, Portalcraft. 3 play 2/3. Put a random artifact from your deck into your hand. We've seen cards sort of like this. Usually, the Portalcraft cards put artifacts into your deck. Cards like this are good because it gets those artifacts from your deck to your hand. And artifacts are really good, like if you get the 5 play point Storm one or the 1 play point 3/1 Rush. So I think you want to be drawing your artifacts. This is an on-curve minion that draws you a card. So it's just good. It's like Witch's Sweets. It's a good card. It's not broken. It's just a good card. I don't know, maybe they have other 3-drops that would contest the 3-drop slot on Portalcraft. But this is like a good card. It's good stats and it draws your card. Doesn't have a downside. It's just good. Just solid. Good card. Next we have Otherworld Rift, a Portalcraft spell. Gold, 5 play points. Banish an enemy follower. Put a random artifact from your deck into your hand. So kind of like the other card that we saw. It's like a card that's okay on its own. Benefit of drawing new artifacts, which is good. You compare this to Acolyte's Light, which banishes a card. Portal is getting some banish, which is interesting. Usually banishes for like Haven only. I don't know if Last Words will be too relevant in the new meta, in the new world. But this is okay removal. I mean, Dance With is rotating out. If you want to play removal, this is an option. And it draws you a card, which is good. Stuff like Execution doesn't really see play. Dance With That does. Execution stop play once a... Like, Banishing is not bad. This is like okay removal, draws your card. I think they could consider this card. Like, maybe you want other cards as removal. But you have this option if Banish is what you want to do. Or if you just need removal. Which will also draw you a card. Just seems okay. Seems good. Next we have Ancient Amplifier. A Portalcraft Amulet. 1 play point. Silver. Countdown 3. At the end of your turn, randomly put 2 of the following cards into your deck. Ancient Artifact. Mystic Artifact. Analyzing Artifact. Radiant Artifact. So we've seen... There's a couple cards that do the same exact effect. I believe we've seen it on a 2-play 1/2/2 and on a 3-play 1/3/4. This is the same effect on a 1-play 1 Amulet. I think this is good for the artifact decks. Because anything that gives you a Radiant Artifact, I gotta imagine it's already pretty strong since you really, really want that card. And the other artifacts are not bad. They're still good all around. Your deck, like you want to put in artifacts into your deck. Maybe this puts too many. Because Countdown 3 means you put in 6 cards into your deck. Maybe you're still okay with that though. Like you can play this on turn 1 while you're technically not really giving up any tempo and you start getting your deck going. It puts 2 every turn, so if you are in Resonance or not, it doesn't kick you out of it or put you into it. Which is good because it won't mess up with controlling your Resonance. Like, does the artifact deck have enough cards that put artifacts or do you want more? If you want more, then you have this as an option. And I feel like you probably want more, right? More cards in your deck means you want deck out from Deus Ex Machina. You have more chance to draw artifacts, which is good. And just synergize with anything that gives you artifacts. So all around seems like a good card. Next we have Pegasus Dullahan, Havencraft Gold. 4-play 1/3/3. Below average stats, but not by too much. When his follower comes into play, restore 2 defense to all our followers. Interesting, this is not fanfare, it's just whenever he comes into play. And this is relevant because he has Last Words, give a random allied counter amulet, Last Words, summon a Pegasus Dullahan. So, you have an amulet, like let's say an area, except not area because area is rotating out. So let's say you have, I don't know, whatever amulet you have. You play this guy, you heal your board, and then when the amulet procs, you get this guy again and he heals your board again. Like a 4-play 1/3/3 Last Word summon a 4-play 1/3/3 is pretty good. This guy heals defense to your all followers both times he summons, which also seems pretty good. Well, it's also Last Words, so that means depending on how many counter amulets you have, you could keep summoning this guy over and over again. I think this card is really good. I feel like Haven's losing a lot of stuff. Like, man, Haven's losing a lot of stuff, but I like this card because after reading it and thinking about it, I'm now thinking about how we're gonna make this deck work, and I like that. That means that I think it has potential, and I want to make this deck. Like, I see the card and I'm like, let's make Pegasus deck. So I think that's good, and I like the design then. Well, maybe it's interesting, right? I like it. I want to try and make the deck, so I'm already interested. That means I like it. I think it will be a good card. Will that deck be good enough? Who knows? But hey, I'm down, dude. Let's try it out. Next we have Frontline Cavalier, a Swordcraft Commander, 4-play 1/3/4. Kind of looks like Misfortune. Whenever an allied officer comes into play, restore 1 defense to your leader. Evil, summon 2 Heavy Knights, which are 1/2 officers. So I like this card a lot. Sword has not really had access to healing before. And this card gives you access to healing, while at the same time giving you a good board. Which is sort of what Sword wants to do. I don't really know what the identity of Sword is supposed to be. Like, they have a bunch of like good early game aggression. And a bunch of clunky late game legendaries. And they're losing some of these. I don't know what is side games intent for Sword to do. I'm not sure. But in a vacuum, on paper, I like this card. It lets you play a Sword deck and get some heal, which is nice. Like, you play this on 4, you're getting 2 points of heal. Because you would, and you're going to get 2 knights, which is already nice. And if this survives, you can even get more heal on top of that. Which just seems good. Even if you're playing this and you don't care about the heal, because let's say you're at 20, you get a 4-5 and 2-1-2s, which is not bad at all either. And if you do care about the heal, then this is good. So all around, I like it. I don't know what deck we're gonna try this in. You guys know me. We're gonna try to make some sort of slow Sword deck. I don't know how it's gonna work, but we'll probably play this card. I like it. I like this card a lot. Next we have Abyss Straddler, a Shadowcraft legendary. I look at this card, and I think this card is ass, like super bad. And I want you guys to help me. Tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe I am. Like, 8play.15 is atrocious stat line. We were talking earlier about how Loki is 8play.55 and that's bad. This card is 1-5, which is infinitely worse. The effect gives him attack, so let's get to this effect. At the end of turn, perform Necromancy 4, gain 3 attack. Assuming you have 4 shadows, which, I mean, you should, but maybe you don't. Like, if you don't have shadows, this card is straight ass. If you have shadows, he becomes a 4-5, which is still bad. Whenever this follower attacks, if he has 10 attack, destroy this follower. Last words, deal X damage to enemy leader, X equals to his follower's attack. So, let's say you play this guy. Let's try and look at the best case scenario here, right? Like how is this card going to actually function? You play this dude on 8. You have shadows. He becomes a 4-5. It's at the end of your turn, so you can't even trade with it early on. God, that's bad. Okay, so you play this guy as a 4-5 for 8 play points. Your opponent uses rule on it, or they Evo over it. You do 4 damage to their face. That's the most realistic scenario, I feel like. If we want to get crazy, you play this guy. You like Evo him. He survives. Interesting note, he gets +3 attack on Evo and only 1 health. Kind of like Lucifer in that regard. Okay, let's say he plays again, you Evo him as a 4-6. You can trade over something, maybe, turn 8, you know. And the other turn becomes a 7, whatever. And then he can deal at least 7 damage to the enemy leader. That's not that bad. Assuming you're playing this guy and you have shadows and you save the Evo. And doing 7 damage to the opponent is not bad. If he survives, the next turn you can get 3 attack. If he gets to 10, he does 10. But like, I just don't see it happening. Co 724 with the follow. Thank you, dude. Help me understand this card, guys. Help me understand this card. Like, let's be real here. You're not going to play this card, and it's not going to survive 2 turns. Like, for this card to get to 10 attack, it is not happening. For once, you need a bunch of shadows. For 2, like, this is not going to survive that long. It doesn't have the stats to stay on the board for like 3 turns. So the more realistic thing is you play this guy, you Evo him. At the end of the turn, he gets 3 attack. Then they kill him, and you do 7 damage to the enemy leader. Is that unfair enough for you to play in your Shadowverse deck? Next, we got Pitfall, a neutral spell, 3 play points. This is kind of like Treasure Map where the art feels out of place. Is it just me? This is not anime. Where's my anime, dude? I demand more anime. I don't like the art. Destroy enemy follow that attack last turn. 3 play point destroy a minion is pretty good. Usually you play 5 play points for those. There's the condition that the follower had to have attacked. So let's say your opponent plays an Abyss Straddler on 8. It is my turn 8 now. I can't Pitfall that because he's not attacked. Unless he Evoed, right? I guess this will always clear minions that Evoed. Just not things that are played standalone. But I guess because of the Evo system, Pitfall is more accessible. Is this good enough though? Like, consider Dragon has a 2 playpoint destroy damage minion. Minion that attacks probably, you know, takes some damage. So Dragon can like do this for 2 playpoints, and they didn't really play that card. But obviously anybody can play this. I don't know, man. The other thing is that like this doesn't even enhance to destroy minions that didn't attack. So let's say you want to kill someone that didn't attack last turn. Even if you want to play the extra playpoints, you can't. Which makes it sort of clunky, right? But maybe it's good, I don't know. Like, playpoint reduction is usually strong. Is this worth enough for playing some decks as removal? Maybe? I'm not sure how to feel about this card. But my intuition tells me this is not that good. Next we got Firesprite Grove, a Forestcraft Amulet. 1 playpoint, countdown 2. Last words, deal 1 damage to a random enemy follower. Deal 1 damage to a random enemy follower if this amulet is returned to your hand. At the end of your turn, put a fairy into your hand. Okay, this card has a bunch of different effects. So I guess let's go over them one by one. Okay, so let's ignore the if you bounce it back, right? So you play this and you don't bounce it back. What are you actually getting for 1 playpoint? You're getting a fairy into your hand, 2 turns, and you're getting 1 damage to a random enemy follower. So you compare this to Fairy Circle, because Fairy Circle is a 1 playpoint give you 2 fairies. This is a 1 playpoint give you 2 fairies over 2 turns, so it's not strictly better. But after, it also gives you 1 damage to a random enemy follower. And the 1 damage means that your fairies can trade up. It means you can clean up random things. Like, 1 damage effect is pretty good in Forest. So that alone, it seems fine. Like, if you're trying to play an aggressive deck that needs to have a bunch of fairies, this will give you fairies and let you fight for the board, which you probably want to do anyway. If you bounce it back, you deal 1 damage to a random enemy follower. So you probably don't want to bounce this back. I mean, you can. But if you ever want to bounce this back, then you also get 1 damage. And that's also like a nice bonus on top. So all around, I'm going to say this is good. If Fairy Circle saw play, and it does, then I think this could see play as well. A force card. Next we got Fairy Saber. A 6 playpoint, 4/5 gold. Below average stats. It has Rush, so it can fight the board on the board. It can fight the board instantly in the same turn. Fanfare, give all our followers +1 attack. Give all other allied followers Rush if at least 2 other cards were played this turn. Okay, so let's say you're playing this on the forest deck where you have a bunch of dudes. You're trying to storm the board. You play this, you give everybody 1 attack, and that is not bad. You get a 4/5 Rush that can clear a ward or fight the board, and that's not bad at all. The second effect of giving everyone else Rush seems kind of hard. Cards that cost like 6 or 7 or 8, it's hard for you to play 2 cards with it that turn, unless you are playing 0-cost fairies. Next we got Goblinmount Ogre. It's a 3 playpoint 1/4 ward. Fanfare enhance 5, gain +2/+2. So if you enhance it on 5, it's a 3/6 ward. It's basically the Goblinmount reprint, except it doesn't damage your own followers, which is nice. And you can play it on 3 if you're really struggling in the early game, which is also nice. Obviously, you would rather play this for 5. The old Goblinmount did see play in Dragon back in the day, mainly because they could ramp into it and they didn't really have other followers or followers like Ayla that they wanted to kill. It has 1 less health, doesn't damage your followers. I don't know, man. Is a 3/6 ward good enough for 5 play points? My heart tells me no, man. I don't think so. It's too fair. It's way too fair. This seems like more of a take-2 card. I can't see a construct deck being like, oh yeah, dude, I'm gonna slam this 3/6 ward. Like, it's too fair, right? I guess 3/6 ward, you went to a 5/8. That's not bad. You could trade and, you know, have high health left over. And you can play this on 3 if you absolutely must, which is nice. But all around, I can't imagine anybody being like, my deck needs a Goblinmount Ogre. Next we have Silent Laboratory, a Runecraft Sigil. So Rune's losing a lot of sigils, so here's a new one. Randomly summon one of the following: a clay golem or a zombie. I think the whole golem or zombie thing is like thematically If the experiment is right, you get a golem. If it goes wrong, you get a zombie. So thematically, it's a pretty cool card. I don't think the effect matters too much. Although there is a card that like gives your clay golems wards, and it wouldn't work with zombies. It's basically like a 2-play 1/2/2 that gives you a sigil. And if you think about it that way, then it's pretty damn good. Like, consider Dwarf Alchemist is a 2-play 1/2/2 that gave you a 1-cost sigil to your hand that you had to then play for 1 play point. And that card was like still really, really good. This is a 2-play 1/2/2 that already puts a sigil on the board. So for Earthright, this seems really, really good to me. I like it a lot. Next we have Silver Cog Spinner, a Portalcraft Gold. 4-play 4/3, so good stats, or reasonable stats. Fanfare Restore 2 to your leader. If Resonance is active for you, record 1 play points. So the health is nice, it's just a nice. The strong part of this card is the play point recovery. We've talked about before how cheating out play points is really, really strong. This card doesn't quite cheat it out because you can't play this on turn 3. You need to have 4 play points. You do get a play point back, which is still strong. It means you can play this on 4 and then play like a 1 play point artifact or spell or something to contest the board. Or in the late game, you can play this and get an extra play point, which is good. I think restoring play points is a strong mechanic. I think this is a better way to do it than reduction. So props to side games for not making this be able to be a 3-cost. So I think that's good. We're not really sure what the 4-drop for the Portalcraft decks will be, but I guess they have this as an option. The heal is just nice. It'll make this card, it just gives you better matchups against like aggro and stuff like that. So that's good. And the extra play point is nice as well. So I think this card is solid. Seems good. I guess there'll be times where you won't be in Resonance. And if you're not, then you can just hold this card and not play it. Or still play it and like it's not garbage, right? So it's fine. I think this card is good.